Tous, on se retrouve pour une énième découverte. Story The Pass of the Destiny. Excusez-moi, je suis encore malade, donc je vais pas énormément parler, j'ai encore mal, et en plus de ça, je crois que j'ai chopé un rhume. Je pense que ça peut s'entendre. Donc, je vais vous le faire quand même, mais bon, je ne parlerai pas plus que ça. Je vous le préviens de suite. Donc, allez, on est parti.
Once upon a time, the infamous rover Reynardo plundered the floating isles. Then his mother called him to her deathbed. "Swear to me that you won't die on the gallows," she rasped. Reluctantly, he swore. And he whiled away his days at home with music, cards, and wine. But the Emperor had changed. He'd been good once, a shy, almost humble toad. He'd built universities. Then people started whispering about mass graves in the woods, midnight rituals, victims screaming. The Imperial Ravens would round up entire villages, and no one ever returned. The Ravens had come to Ubar scouting for ancient books said to be of great power. But the librarians had hidden the books, so they'd burnt the librarians. The citizens, outraged, had driven them off. The Ravens had come back with dropships. The kid had fled with one of those books. He was brave and dumb and wanted to join the rebellion. And Reynardo had promised his mother he'd protect him.
Donc, si j'ai bien compris, l'empereur veut récupérer le bouquin que notre mère nous a dit de garder. Le chargement a l'air un peu long par contre. C'est un petit peu décevant ça.
Was looking down, watching the city burn. Sorry, kid, Reynardo told the kid. Look, if we give them the book, they'll leave you alone. My mother died for this book! I promised her I'd protect you.
Ah non, c'est un petit qui doit protéger le bouquin.
Damn it. The kid had run off. With the book, of course. So Reynardo had to run after him. The two ravens were staring at the kid like he was their dinner, which probably was what was in their tiny brains. "Hey," Reynardo said. They cocked their heads at him. "Pick on someone as ugly as you." Wait, that didn't come out right. "For the Emperor!" The ravens cawed and rushed at him.
Le compte assez intéressant.
A dropship flew overhead. He hoped they hadn't noticed him. The kid. Oh, right. The Gate of Heroes. Someone's idea of a joke, making the Skyship docks a gated community. You needed a hero's sword to open it. And the kid was on the other side of the gate. Who let you through? Promise me you'll take the book to the rebels. Or I'm gonna steal your ship. I'm not taking that damn book anywhere, and neither are you.
Try and stop me, laughed the kid. I bet you don't even have a hero sword.
And with that, the kid hopped away. Had to hand it to the kid. He was an idiot, but he had guts. Where was Reynardo going to get a hero sword? Ore and wind essence? Perfect. A hero sword. QED. This is what he got for settling down and finding people to care about. The kid's mum had been a swell cook, and she'd laughed at Reynardo's jokes, even when he didn't know he'd made one. And then the ravens had come to burn her. And she'd made him promise to protect the kid. But she never told him where the book was. Just the kid. He came up to a ledge. It was too far to jump. There'd been a bridge here before, hadn't there? And there was Peter, giggling at him. "How'd you get across?" he asked the kid. "I hopped," said the kid. White-ass kid. "Hey, look out behind you!" "Cute," said Reynardo. Ah, ravens. It was time to talk some sense into the kid. Just hook his way across the ledge and chase the kid down. Thing was, he hadn't used his hook since he'd retired. How had he done it? Maybe if he meditated at that altar there, he'd remember his old skills. Starting to come back to him. Something you never completely forgot, like how to freeze time when attacking. The more he fought, the more he'd probably remember. And there was the Farfarer. She was the fastest ship he'd ever known. She could do the Kestra run in 12 furlongs. Oh, so the salesman had told him. And something told him the kid was about to walk into an ambush. "Stop!" he shouted. "I'm not giving you the book!" shouted the kid, and took off. "No! Peter!" But the kid ran for it, and a goggler nailed him with its eye beam. The book was unburned. Next to it,
Peu facile à faire.
buckles from the kid's shoes.
Il a fondu ensemble.
Kid-sized pile of ashes. Damn it! Why hadn't he lied and told the kid he'd take the book to the rebels? The kid would be alive now. Really pissed off and betrayed, but alive. Oh, damn it! Reynardo picked up the book. He couldn't let the Empire have it now. He was going to have to get it out of there. He'd be a wanted man. Probably have to join the rebellion just to have a place to dock. Well, he'd hated home life anyway. What was the big deal about this book anyway? Maybe he should open it and find out. All that had been years ago. How many? The war was a blur, and now 3 Raven scout ships were chasing him.
Where are you running, rebel?
Cawed the Raven captain over the loud hailer. Renato could see them cranking up their catapults.
Just going out for milk?
Renato yelled back.
Where can you run?
Laughed the Raven horribly. Far behind him, another city was burning. The dark cloud above its island was thousands of Imperial ships. The fleet was doing a thorough job.
Take us to the rebel base! I will spare your life!
It called. The entire jury-rigged rebel fleet was only a few islands to the east. Beyond that were only the pillars of heaven. A sea of endless blood-colored tornadoes. The rebellion was out of time. Unless Renato could bring a game-changer. Maybe he could. Renato had found out where he could find the pieces of the Sky Ripper. The legendary weapon that had exiled the lost gods. Surely a legendary weapon could win the final battle. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino had sent Renato a desperate message saying he had a brilliant scheme to save the rebellion. If Renato could only rescue him. Renato dived the Farfarer towards the abyss. As he felt the heat of the jet stream, the Raven ships peeled off, not stable enough to follow him down there. Now it was time to choose. Lapino or the Sky Ripper?
Ouais, on va aller tenter de sauver Lapino.
Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lapino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. The Ravens had figured out that Lapino was a rebel spy. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse.
Ouais, les chargements sont un peu lourds.
Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? Imagine if you built a house on one of these things. Oh, that would be amazing. It would be like having a boat. The Ravens had taken the town. Renato had seen villages emptied like this. All the people taken away to be sacrificed in the Emperor's secret rituals. Renato hoped the people were just hiding. Renato's blood was up. He just needed to smash something. Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Where had the mad rabbit got to? It was good to practice your moves, thought Reynardo. Keeps you limber. Reynardo felt a little better. Reynardo felt like he was ready to learn new things. Thank goodness he didn't have to go to school for that. It was starting to come back to him. Something you never completely forgot. Like how to freeze time when attacking. The more he fought, the more he'd probably remember.
Déjà, quand un move pool, c'est beaucoup plus pratique.
Reynardo felt a chill run down his back. Or possibly a flea. Dirty and bloody, Reynardo finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Reynardo recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, we see this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia.
We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows, and that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who also happened to be a deadly sorcerer and, oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power. To make the Sky Ripper, the Transcendent Emperor had wrapped an armature around the eye of a god. Reynardo had already let that armature slip away to save Lupino's life. But even its core, the eye torn from a god, surely they could fashion a great weapon from that.
The core of the Sky Ripper? Capino's excited. That's an actual thing that we could just go and get. You've been busy.
He sure had. Renato told him all the things he'd been up to. Soon they got to talking about old times, about wages they'd won and lost, and scrapes they'd barely got out of. It was good to be back with his friend. Renato grinned. He had a very good feeling about this. It's beautiful here, thought Renato. He was thrilled to be back with his old war buddy. He'd missed the mad rabbit, but something was not quite right.
Donc, dans tous les cas, c'est un jeu assez narratif. Bon, on a toujours la voix rock et emmerdante du narrateur, mais bon. Il y a pire, j'ai envie de dire.
Who needed bridges anyway?
Ah, c'est du TP, d'accord.
I wonder what I could make with all these sword crafting materials, thought Renato.
Ouais, je peux crafter une épée.
There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time.
Perso, je ne monterai pas sur un pont comme ça, hein.
Now, doopsie-doo.
Renato had learned so much. Renato felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. And if the land could have tumors, they would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than it had been. There were insects, but few birds, if you didn't count the ravens. Renato smelled sick animals and dying ones, but no healthy ones. And getting a bad feeling about this, Renato thought. Maybe Lapina was right. Maybe they should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. missed his old skills. He welcomed them back like it was at a reunion.
Ils en sont fait mal là, c'est ça Hugo. Il faudrait de la vie. Monsieur Jean.
As he held the radiant icosahedron, Renato felt queasy, like dozens of sides. It wasn't healthy to be so close to the eye of a god. How could he use it? He could take it to the observatory. The scientists there could tell him how to harness its ancient power. But honestly, Renato ached to get away from it. He brought the core back with him to the Farfarer. But honestly, Renato ached to be rid of it.
Tell you what, said Lupino. I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial outpost.
The Imperial outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Renato. But what if Lupino got the core and then broke it, or lost it, or worse? Was Renato ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself.
Bon, vu le passif, Lupino, démerde-toi avec
Trust me,
le...
Renato, you won't regret this. I'll treat the core like it was my own baby daughter.
As the Farfarer dived towards the Nexus, Lupino was jumping up and down with excitement. Stop rabbiting around, Renato said. Lupino just stared at him. The moment the ship landed, Lupino leapt off the ship. As Lupino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Renato vaguely remembered Lupino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Renato was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lupino would get it right. And if Renato could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in the sector, right?
Truth was, Renato really liked the sound his sword made in the air.
He'd once met a pirate captain. He used hooks to get around his ship. Oh, what was his name again?
Donc ça a l'air d'être par là. Ouais, je peux plus faire demi-tour. Ça c'est dommage. Je suis obligé d'aller par là, sniff.
His mother never let him wave his sword around at home. He guessed he was still compensating for that.
Ouais, il en reste un. Bon, pas grave.
Renato caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lupino. Of course he had to let Lupino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? Renato hoped his mother wasn't watching.
Ah, cool. Enfin.
Renato took the outpost with a song in his heart. Soon, he was stuffing his sack with key messages from and to the fleet.
Maintenant, il y avait un gros
One message
coffre.
A high priority order has been given by the Emperor himself to locate something called the Iblis Stone. It was somewhere on a desert island. Renato had a bad feeling about this. Iblis was the name of one of the lost gods. If the Emperor was diverting ravens to search for it, maybe he should try to find it first. Then the Farspeaker Toad chortled a new message. The observatory had been sacked by ravens. Lapino and all the scientists had been taken to the mountains. Why? Why had he trusted Lapino again? And now the Empire had the core. Renato hailed the rebel base to warn them. But their far speaker didn't crouch back. Was the base under attack too? Lapino would have to wait. The core would have to wait. Renato had a very bad feeling that something was going terribly wrong at the rebel base. Its location was secret, but secrets can be discovered. There were Imperials everywhere in the ruins, and dead civilians. The Ravens were killing everything in sight. Renato was relieved to see no rebels among the dead. Maybe the secret base was still secret, but there were huge burn marks on buildings. What monstrous weapon was the Empire using here? The core had great power. Had they harnessed it somehow, even though they didn't have the armature? Nice. That could be useful. He wasn't that good. Yet.
Un coffre par là.
Smell charred flesh and hear screams. The ruins were on fire. But the Ravens had rigged up the core as some kind of burning ray. They wouldn't need to know the secret location. They were burning everything. It was killing them too. Their black feathers littered the path. He would have to take the core from them. It was the last thing he wanted to do. Hey, oh, I know, because there's no I in team. That was new. Most people still use doorknobs. The rebel base seemed quiet. That was good. Also, it seemed to be burning. That wasn't so good. Renato felt new powers ready to blossom within him, or something.
Ça c'est chiant, et dans ça on peut plus faire demi-tour.
As the last raven fell, Renato felt worse than he ever had. The core was killing him, again. The council members cautiously came out into the smoke. "You saved us," croaked the speaker. They would put the weaponized core deep in a cavern, she promised, where its poison could harm no one. They would heal him if they could, she said. No, it's a weapon now. We need one.
Salut Dynamo. Salut Vic.
Croaked the speaker. I guess it already has, Renato said. She bobbed her head gravely.
When all this is over,
She said.
we'll name our new capital city.
Mais je crois qu'il a fugué Dynamo.
Flew towards the Imperial fleet. A myriad ships in disciplined formation, waiting for the signal to destroy the rebellion forever.
Il y a pire.
Behind him, the rebels were charging. If he failed, they would die. And so the final battle began.
Oh non, il est là Dynamo.
Everything hurt. It was unpleasant to fight this way. With each blow he struck with his sword, he felt weaker. Yet each time the core fired, it got brighter. As if the heat for the burning ravens and buildings only fed its
Oh,
hunger.
l'essence.
He wondered where Lapino was.
La lose.
Wasn't he supposed to be in the battle? No. He'd been captured, hadn't he? Oh, Renato's mind was smoky now, like the burning fleet. He hoped this wouldn't take long.
The story. Je sais plus quoi. C'est écrit dans le titre.
Haven't you always wanted to do that?
Si j'ai bien compris, ça consiste en une histoire où t'es un ancien pirate. C'est un jeu d'action réellement. T'es un ancien pirate qui a décidé de se ranger mais qui se retrouve dans une situation particulière vu que l'empereur de son pays a décidé de casser la gueule à tout le monde. Pour faire simple. Sinon ça consiste en une succession de petites missions type action-aventure où tu dois remplir des objectifs.
That's my order, thought Renato. He was such a wit.
Oui. PSN, je sais plus quand. Ouais, en beaucoup moins chiant.
That was awesome.
Aïe! Ça fait mal! Salut Maxime. Mais bon anniversaire, si c'est le cas.
Next time, stay away from the other guy's sword, you know?
Aïe, mais lâche-moi!
Where Renato went next, we cannot follow. Yet.
Putain!
I'm just trying to teach you how to fly.
Reynardo Opolis. Vulpus Major.
Aïe!
Lando Nardo. If you were going to name a
Putain,
capital
je fais
city,
que mourir là, c'est casse-mur.
well, he just wished he had a better name. Where was Lupino? He missed Lupino's bitter outbursts. Or did he? Lupino had gotten him into this mess, hadn't he? And the core was a wonderful weapon. It swept fire across the fleet. Ravens exploded in its gaze, and with every heartbeat it grew brighter. He would die. But he would die every inch a hero. Spectacularly, changing history like the legendary heroes of lore. Or was it yore? No, he couldn't remember anymore.
There was an inscription. Praise the sun. wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. Really needed to construct additional pylons.
Ok, en fin de journée du... Ouais. Ah, t'es de retour, t'es pas censé aller à Bordeaux, JD? Oh, j'ai pas tout suivi, là. Donc. Putain de sa mère. Mais c'est casse-couille, là je suis dans une phase où le machin que j'ai avec moi m'inflige des dommages permanents. Voilà, merde, enfin.
Renato fell to his knees. The Emperor's bodyguards were lined up before his ship. Fierce ravens, all. And Zenobia. She was conjuring. He could not take another step. All he could do was fire the core. The ravens, Zenobia, the ship, all burst into flames, disintegrated, and blew away. So they had one, after all. The core grew brighter. He shielded his eyes, but he could still see it through his sleeves and through the flesh of his arm. And then he felt heat,
as the fire grew to consume both fleets. And then he felt nothing. Okay, that was weird. He could have sworn he just died. Instead, he was on the Farfarer, sailing away from Ubar. And it was still burning. He'd fled burning Ubar years ago, hadn't he? And now he was back there. Had all those years fighting the Empire been nothing but a vision into the future? A useful vision if it was true. He'd learned something. The core was powerful.
T'as autant de faim que ça, putain!
If used improperly. He'd made bad choices. But now, when the real battle came, he wouldn't make those choices. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The book's pages began to flip backwards, towards the beginning. And he realized that his adventure was just beginning. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Lapino was no game changer, but could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Donc, on va s'axer sur la mécanique du match. Hein.
The transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces deep. And then
La rébellion et compagnie, on va faire le Sky Reaper. Le Sky Reaper. Zut.
But surely there must be some way to do it without provoking another catastrophe. Had he somehow summoned the long-lost components of the legendary weapon out of the deep places of the Earth? It was more than Renato could fathom. But if he could find a legendary weapon, he would use it.
Mais pas si complexe que ça, c'est que tu as tu as plusieurs choix et chaque choix t'oriente vers une fin différente. C'est-à-dire que tu as autant de choix possibles que de possibilités au choix. C'est là, plus ou moins, t'as 4 fois où tu te demandes le choix et t'as entre 2 et 3 questions concernant ce choix, donc 3, 12... Ouais, t'as une vingtaine de fins différentes sur ce jeu. T'as une vingtaine de fins... Bon, ta gueule, l'IA.
Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it?
J'avais les briquets. Je sais pas où je les ai foutus. Bon, pas grave, ça attendra un peu. Donc, comme je le disais, t'as 20 et quelques fins différentes. Et t'as des portes que tu ne peux pas y accéder avant d'avoir fait certains trucs, etc., etc., etc.
It was time to make a new sword.
4. Putain. On manque encore un petit peu, fait chier. Je veux une nouvelle sword. Ah, presque la bonne essence, fait chier. Ouais, ils sont bien faits. C'est un jeu qu'il faut l'avouer assez
A crafting bench.
assez
And I
intéressant.
wondered what he could make with it.
Ah si, je peux en faire une. Monter sur cette sword. Oh, encore des sentinelles. Ça c'est chiant les sentinelles. Mais pour le moment c'est de la découverte. Par contre je mettrais peut-être comme sur certains autres jeux un petit sondage pour savoir si vous voulez qu'on le continue ou pas.
You blinked. The people who had built this castle, did they even know what monstrous weapon lay hidden within their walls? The Sky Ripper could destroy anything it touched, or so the legend said. As the Transcendent Emperor had fought the Lost Gods, thousands had died. But Renato had been through wars. The only merciful war was a short one. This was way better than being able to shrink down to the size of an ant. What was that all about, anyway? Can I borrow that? This chest contained blank passports from 15 countries. And something useful. Hey. Hey, I'm a firefox, thought Renato.
Blague de merde, narrateur. Mais c'est qu'ils font mal.
I'm sorry. Was that you? your shield?
Ah merde!
Take the goat across first, Renardo thought. But it was too late.
Puzzle. Renardo loved puzzles. Except when he couldn't figure them out. On the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good.
Oh, sweet! A gem.
All he needed now was a workbench, and he could slot it into his gauntlet. There had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper without causing a catastrophe. Why? Maybe it's always dangerous, he imagined Zenobia saying. Always the voice of reason, that one. Well, there had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper, because not being able to use it was boring. So there.
Un point de comp.
There it was. Sky Ripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Sky Ripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her.
Je ne sais pas du tout qui est sur le chat Dynamo. Il y a déjà moi. Et toi, mais bon, je ne pense pas que ce soit compté.
It was a no-brainer. He'd sacrificed his old friend Lapino to get the armature. And the armature was useless by itself, only a series of coils and wheels. War demanded sacrifices, and he would make more before the end.
He would have to choose the greatest good no matter how much
Bon,
it
je vais me
cost.
chercher mon briquet.
Zenobia.
Je suis censé de le trouver, mon briquet.
He would see her sooner or later, across a battlefield or a sword's point before all this was
Oui.
over. He was sure of that. The power was in the core. Obviously, he had to get the core.
Bon, après, sur ce, je risque de vous faire un live assez long. Mais qu'il est pas mal.
Doubt sunk in before he was even out of sight of the Farfarer. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? It was the sort of path he'd always avoided. The path of responsibility, of seriousness. Had he grown up? He didn't feel grown up. He'd made this decision from his gut, like he always did. Somehow, he'd impulsively decided to stop being impulsive. Did that make any sense?
Mais je veux aller.
The waterfall was spectacular.
Oui, enfin,
I
on
had
a
to
été vu.
enjoy these things as they came. We passed
Donc
this way
déjà,
about
on va
once.
équiper une gemme. Voilà, là. Enfin, on a trouvé une gemme. Non, je devrais pouvoir en craft une. Ah non, mais il manque énormément. On fait une quantité astronomique. On va prendre celui-là. Là. Bon, les deux même au même endroit. What? J'ai mal.
There
Monde de
was
radin.
something
Donnez-moi de la vie.
Yeah.
Oui, ça marche aussi.
like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. Once, he'd found a Superman issue #1 in mint condition in a jar he'd broken. He planned to keep breaking things until he had the whole series.
Oui, j'ai prévu de
You
continuer à
almost
tout
never
casser.
saw wild gogglers together like this. The toads had to train them not to peck each other to death. So these had to be imperial gogglers. That meant ravens were up ahead. That was always a rush.
Avec mes 6 malheureux points de vie, je vais pas aller loin là.
There were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline growths. Had those been here before? He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest. The mice and
Je veux de la
rabbits.
vie, donnez-moi de la
Where had they
vie.
gone? And he was getting hungry too.
Coffre.
This was an unhealthy place to be.
« 40. Normalement, plus que quelques-uns et je vais pouvoir faire une autre épée. C'est-à-dire ouvrir d'autres chemins. Non, un TP. Ouais. Feignaise.
Where did that go to?
Aïe! Bande de saligots! Mais what? Mais what? Merde, à la fin.
He was in a swirl of newly remembered knowledge. Needed to focus.
Ouais, licence élémentaire niveau 2, cool. Donc, ok.
This couldn't be good for global warming.
See? With enough leverage, you could go anywhere.
Voilà, là. Contrer inflige désormais des dégâts. Mais c'est pas déjà le cas. Donc, on va voir. Là, ça nous offre quoi? Du sprint en plus. Pour le moment, ça suffit. Un peu plus de vitesse de déplacement.
Swell. He'd always wanted to do that.
Voilà, ça paraît quelque chose de correct, cette petite idée là. Ça, je peux pas les casser. Et là, logiquement, on arrive à la fin de cette mission. C'est ça.
The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark art, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus.
He carried his prize back to the Farfarer. Now, he had to make his next move.
There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of super weapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it.
On va aller vers l'observatoire, vu qu'on l'a pas fait.
Well, of course. If you've just assembled a weapon out of legend that can exile gods from the world, you'd want to have a scientist or two look at it. And even if they disagreed and he had time, he could ask Calaveras himself. Yes, the observatory would be his objective.
Bon, on va finir cette histoire et s'arrêter là. Hein, donc normalement, si je me prends pas, reste 2 missions.
Why had the parts of the Sky Ripper only surfaced now, thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had dismantled it? The mad Emperor Isengrim had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Was that why these ancient artifacts were rising out of the ground? How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his destruction. And, hopefully this time, just his destruction. Oh, this really didn't have much in the way of safety features, did it? Going spectacularly well, thought Renato. A legendary weapon was exactly what the rebellion needed. They were outnumbered. The once kind emperor had become a tyrant. But his ravens stayed loyal, for he fed them his victims, and the other animals were too frightened to rebel. Renato shuddered at what the emperor was trying to do. To bring back the lost gods, the Black Harvest, the Black Sun. No. He would stop that toad, no matter what the risk. What were these poles, exactly? Parking meters from the time of the lost gods? Sometimes, at home, he'd wave his sword around for hours. The Nexus Observatory had the Empire's most renowned scientists, working by themselves without interference. At least, so far.
Ah, il me manque des essences d'eau. Pour le moment, on va laisser tel quel.
Energy spheres.
Aïe.
Easy to dodge, but boy, did they sting if you didn't pay attention. Boy, some people are just liable to explode if you upset them.
Ah putain de sa race.
Renato remembered a fairy tale his mother had told him. At a land where only the apes talked, and animals went around without clothes.
Renato at hot potato.
Donc voilà, non. Ça c'est fait.
Take a leap of faith, said the inscription. Renato was thrilled. The scientists seemed to think he'd put the Sky Ripper together right. But one toad was worried.
Yeah, the Sky Ripper could carve a hole in existence itself. There are invisible strings that tie the universe together. If the Sky Ripper cut one, the hole would widen and widen until our whole existence fell into it.
Another toad sighed. Oh, Irving still believes in string theory.
At least go see Calaveras.
Yeah, said the worried toad.
He knows more than anyone else has forgotten about the Transcendent Emperor.
If anyone could tell him how to use this weapon safely, it would be Calaveras. It was he who had told Renato how to find it in the first place. But maybe he had to give up on using it as a weapon. Maybe he had to go to the secret rebel base and ask the generals there what he could do with a weapon that he dared not use. One way or another, there had to be a safe way to use it.
On va aller faire le crapaud.
To consult Calaveras again. The scientists at the observatory were smart enough. But what did they know of the Transcendent Emperor? He hoped it wouldn't delay him too long. The rebels had scheduled the final battle soon. Every day they delayed risked the exposure of the secret base. Some soldiers were already drifting back to their homes and families. Calaveras would fix the Sky Ripper for him. And then he would win the final battle. Maybe it was the cold. But after a few steps, Renato's optimism started to slump. What if Calaveras couldn't help? Did Renato dare use the Sky Ripper? Oh, he hated that he had chosen this path. It was so much simpler to rescue friends and attack enemies, even if some of those friends were more trouble than his enemies. Some of those enemies had been friends before and might be lovers after. No, okay, it wasn't all that much simpler, no. Physics made his brain hurt. That, at least, he was sure of.
Already, Renato knew more than he ever had. But about what? Well, they really needed to redecorate anyway.
C'est du lait depuis le tutoriel. Donc. On va les déverrouiller la porte tout de même. Là, c'est un bon plan.
Long live the Emperor! Called the Ravens.
Na 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Goodbye.
Tried to focus on the now. The ravens who seemed everywhere all the time. Where did they hatch from? Were there giant raven hatcheries somewhere, or did they have families? Ooh, he didn't want to think about raven mummies raising their darling raven chicks. Yeah, Calvaris would help. He would make Renato feel better about using the Sky Ripper. And then Renato wouldn't have to worry about ravens ever again. Renato's paws were getting numb. Calaveras really didn't want company, did he? What else? The rebels were counting on Renato. He hoped Calaveras knew what he was doing.
Ça, c'est sûr, il veut pas de la compagnie, le crapaud là.
Renato checked to make sure his sword was still working. Yep.
Toujours de plus de points de vie.
Calaveras had never let him down.
Yeah, of course I can make it work better.
But when Renato explained about the strings, Calaveras grew thoughtful.
Oh, strings, you say? Well, the Arcana do speak of the ties that bind the world.
He drew many intricate symbols in the dirt.
Yeah, so, according to my calculations, each time you fire, I'm afraid there's a 1 in 120 chance you'll destroy the universe.
That's pretty good odds. That's like rolling, what, 21 dice and they all come up 6. What are the odds of that?
What? No! It's more like 2.716s in a row.
Anyway, with those odds, it won't happen if I use it just once, Renato said. Although he wasn't sure that was entirely right.
Yeah, that's not right. Each time you use it... Okay, look, just don't use it ever.
All right, I guess. As he sailed towards the fleet, Renato could see the dropships of the rebels coming out of the clouds. This was it. The big battle. They could not afford to lose this one. What if it didn't go well? What if he had to use the Sky Ripper? Could he risk the entire universe in the throw of a dice? On the other hand, what were the odds of rolling 21? Or was it 2.71? 6s in a row. He had a feeling they were surprisingly good. That is, bad. Anyway, the odds were big. His brain was hurting again.
Bon. Oui, la vie, c'est le bien. La vie, c'est cool.
The battle was not going spectacularly well. What had the rebels been thinking? They'd been thinking he would bring the Sky Ripper. Or the Iblastone.
Putain, j'ai toujours pas
Or that he'd
assez.
sideline Zenobia somehow. Or turn her. Couldn't he use the Sky Ripper just once? After all, if chances were 1 in 128, that meant he'd for sure be okay the first
Ouais.
time. They'd
Je vais en
get
prendre
worse each time
Excalibur au
he
niveau
used it,
max.
but the first time would be okay, right? He wasn't sure that it was right. So he didn't fire the Sky Ripper. He just brought it along, in case. The portal was heavily guarded. It must go someplace they really didn't want him to go. Sharp? Check. Pointy? Check. Flexible? Check. What else do you need in a sword? Good thing Renato didn't have vertigo.
Toujours pas la bonne épée. Hein, bizarrement, quand j'ai pas la vie qui perd tout seul...
I think this is yours, said Renato. But he couldn't hear his enemy's answer. Someone had told him the odds didn't change just because you'd had a streak of good luck. His gut told him that was wrong, though. And he always listened to his gut. On the other hand, 128 chances to win. But one of them would destroy the universe. That seemed a bit serious. Maybe he could defeat the Emperor without firing the Sky Ripper. Maybe he could bluff, but with a real weapon. Like in cards, when you had 3 knaves, but you pretended you had a fizbin. That could work. Once you try it, you're hooked.
Bon, allez, des ennemis.
Ready to become faster, stronger, bolder. If only he could figure out which.
Un match de glace. Un match de joueur.
Set up the Sky Ripper and let it warm up. He would bluff if he had to. Zenobia came out,
flanked by a very daunting platoon of ravens. You won't actually use that, she said in that annoying, I know everything because I'm a cat and you know nothing because you're just a fox voice she had. Or I know the odds. Good, because there's a real chance you could destroy the universe. No, not the first time I use it. The odds are too low. What? No? Yeah, sure. The first time, the odds are practically nothing. They only go up if I use it a bunch more times. No, but that's not how odds work. Didn't you pay attention in class? Now surrender, or I'll use it. Just once, he said. Don't. He felt sure the odds were with him. You have to go with his gut. That's what heroes do. Fire, he said. Please? The Skyripper fired. With a tremendous whoosh, the Emperor's flagship went up in flames. It was awesome. Then he noticed there was a hole in the air. A blackness, like a tear in a parchment. Wind was
C'est ce qu'on appelle la loose.
it. It grew larger and even larger. Crates fell upwards into it, and the world itself seemed bent, like the reflection on a curved mirror, as it poured into the ravenous hole. Ah, 1 in 128. What are the odds? Thought Reynardo, and then everything fell into the hole and was gone. Reynardo stared at the book. He was still alive. Again. And still only flying away from burning Ubar. Had he lived that adventure? Or only dreamt it? Had he really died? It felt so real, not like a dream at all. And he'd lost again. Oh, he hated that. But he had made different choices. And he'd lost in a different way. It was the book, wasn't it? Oracles showed you your destiny. But this was showing him different ways he could die miserably. Thanks a bunch, book, he thought. But these were destinies that he did not have to fulfill. And he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome.
Donc, voilà.
There must be a destiny where he survived and won, right? Otherwise, what was the point? And with that, the book's pages fluttered back once more to the beginning, and the clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Skyripper had surfaced. Reynardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Skyripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Reynardo. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Lapino was no game changer, but could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Donc, sur ce, comme je l'ai dit, on va s'arrêter là. Voilà. Comme sur 2 autres vidéos, que j'essaie de vous retrouver les noms. Je vous les mettrai justement à la fin de celle-ci, où vous pourrez voter pour savoir si vous voulez que je continue l'histoire. Voilà, ces zombies de tête et disent quelque chose, j'essaie de trouver. Until Dawn, voilà. Où je vous ai mis un sondage pour vous savoir si vous voulez que je les continue. Sur celle-là aussi, je vais en mettre un et je vais mettre justement les 2 cités précédemment à la fin. Ou voilà, avec la playlist. Sur ce, je vous dis à la prochaine. C'est As.